Now, with the Switch 2 coming out soon, for better or for worse, it's hard to think of when Nintendo wasn't the gaming juggernaut it is now, with decades of consoles and iconic franchises. But there was a pretty big era when Nintendo was a rising star, saving the industry after the video game crash of 1983 and revolutionized the field with the NES and its brand new series. And these pillars have become icons ever since as some of the biggest franchises in the world. And they weren't afraid to cash in on it, commercializing the hell out of their franchises, giving their IPs to pretty much anyone. I mean, even making freaking Nintendo cereal, which they actually did again a while back. But some of the most iconic products made were the many Nintendo-based TV series. These arguably were some of the first times these franchises got explored more in depth outside of their games and whatever lore they gave in their manuals. Granted, these being American-made, they weren't really can't do anything or just allowed to use the IP without any direct involvement from Nintendo. And it's wild to think about with how infamous Nintendo is at being protective of their properties that these even exist. They're pretty much a time capsule of the 80s video game period and really wild. Now, crazy these have gotten that some are unrecognizable, some a lot more than others. It's just such a wild and wacky time period where it seemed that any product got a tie-in cartoon show, and now with the modern identities franchises, it's so crazy to see the differences when they weren't defined at all. And hey, it's about time to use this old Persona again. And it's a freaking wild ride to get through them, let me tell you. So let's jump right in to the wild and wacky world of Nintendo's 80s cartoons. Let's start out with arguably the most famous, the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, and its famous intro song. Yeah, what can I say? It's iconic, it's really catchy and corny, it's kind of the perfect introduction to the show.
With the Mario Brothers and plumbing's a game, we're not like the others who get all the fame.
Hell, it's so perfect, it even got referenced in the Mario movie as a commercial, which it does really sound like. Though there is a second intro after when the animated portion of the show starts, giving us kind of a backstory to it, where Mario and Luigi were working on a pipe that just so happened to be a warp zone to the Mushroom Kingdom, accidentally helping out Princess Peach, or well, Toadstool as he called here, but I'll call her Peach, and Toad from Bowser, or King Koopa here. Now the thing about this was also kind of the Mario movie. The second theme isn't as good, but it still works.
The game found the secret warp zone while working on the drain. Lend the princess a hand in the mushroom land. Join the action with the plumbers, you'll be hooked on the brothers.
Before that even starts, there's always a random live action segment of real Mario and Luigi, played by freaking Danny Wells and professional wrestler Captain Lou Albano. It's freaking insane. Hey wait, Danny Wells was the detective in Grossology. That's awesome, I can't believe I didn't notice. And it's wild to say, but honestly, I think they played their roles really well. I mean, they're definitely a different portrayal. Remind us was long before a modern depiction of the series that's set in stone. They're one, a lot older and a bit more jaded, but they have such a corny charisma and charm and really give their all in these silly little skits. It's so endearing. They're basically goofy sitcoms that intro the episodes and end with them, with the Mario Bros in their plumbing shop in Brooklyn and have a situation they find themselves in. And other times they have a guest star, sometimes it's a fictional character like Dracula and Frankenstein, ironically not pairing them with their respective episodes, which literally were that, and even Inspector Gadget, probably since it was also made by Dic. But sometimes they'll have a celebrity join them in, like Magic Johnson, Elvira, Sergeant Slaughter, Cyndi Lauper, Suzanne Ross, and even Ernie Hudson, weirdly playing himself as an actual Ghostbuster. It's wild. Even more when this ghostly slime infests the workshop, it possesses Luigi, predicting Gooigi 30 years before that even was a thing. That's insane. And yeah, the sets, while interesting and having a lot of detail, definitely show some cheapness, and it's usually not pretty funny. Okay, actually there are a few legitimately good lines.
I have a stake through his heart. Are you crazy? Steak is $4.59 a pound. 2 cloves of garlic. Oh, wait a minute. It's Mama's recipe for tomato sauce. I knew it. She's been trying to kill us for years.
But the real joy comes from the performances and how committed Danny and Lua are playing the brothers. It's so adorable and endearing, you can't help but love them. It's just so fun. And a real testament to how much these work is that they eventually stopped using those and use some stupid other segment called Club Mario. And god, this is so bad, it's annoying, I hate it. Go back to the real Mario Bros.
MC paying homage to the Wonder Man.
We'll see you next time on Club Mario, where the airwaves are our waves. Dance us out of here.
So yeah, it's stupid, it's corny, but goddamn, is it lovable. But to the show itself. The show is pretty much the setup you'd expect, with the Mario Bros, Peach, and Toad going around the magical world trying to stop Bowser and his plans to take over. Granted, a lot of the times the execution is so freaking wild. Now, Lou and Danny also play their respective characters in animation and live action, which is a really fun touch, and they still kill it in the role, giving just as much enthusiasm.
We can't quit now. Remember the plumbers answers or you'll go down the drain.
Mario feels quite a lot different from his modern depiction, which granted isn't too hard since is usually denoted as a generic hero. Here, Mario is extremely headstrong and impulsive, pretty bullheaded, and is the first to step out of danger when it happens, but he's also shown his much more lighthearted and goofier aspect, though it's largely around his love of food. Like seriously, nearly every line is around his love of pasta, even going to his signature catchphrase, pasta power. Also oftentimes cracking jokes about his weight as well. But honestly, something about that is so fitting for Mario. I mean, come on, of course Mr. Mamma Mia loves his pasta.
Yeah, spaghetti, ravioli, macaroni, tortellini, muscacelli, linguine, and garlic ice cream. Spaghetti!
May the pasta be with you.
Can't do it. I can't use the last of our pasta.
Though speaking of which, Mario is depicted with a very heavy New York accent, helped by a similar attitude. Kinda wild to think about it compared to how iconic Charles Martinet was at defining the character in his portrayal. This was before that, and Brooklyn Mario was the more established norm. So Mario is more of a New York Italian than just Italian. And honestly, this version of Mario has its charm too. It makes you wonder if this was the standard in some parallel universe. Luigi, however, is a lot different. It's actually pretty close to his modern counterpart, oftentimes portrayed as a more sensible one. But also, that his iconic cowardice is a recurring part of his character. Like really, I think this is the first time Luigi ever had this characterization. Well, I guess aside of this commercial.
Mario, where are you?
Kinda wild. I wonder if this actually helped to establish Luigi in canon or if it's all a wild coincidence. Peach is also here, but unfortunately, I don't think the show really utilized him too much. They don't really get much of a chance to shine and are pretty generic. I haven't seen every episode. I mean, there's 52 and I want to get this done in a timely manner. And it's not like these episodes are serialized, but she is rarely given any actual characterization or importance, maybe just pipping a line or fighting some goons every once in a while. A few notable episodes do show a responsible and selfless side, but it's few and far between. Honestly, there's very little to indicate she's actually a princess. For most of the show, she might as well just be some wandering hobo that thinks they're royalty. It's not until the episode Flatbush Koopa where we see the actual Mushroom Kingdom, and she is in fact the ruler of the Toads. Speaking of which, there's Toad. Toad is maybe the most divisive character. He's small but full of attitude, and a lot of people don't like him, kind of equate him to Scrappy-Doo. And he can be a bit annoying, but weirdly, he didn't actually bother me. One, he actually does help out a lot, even getting a few victories and wins by themselves and being pivotal to success. And I don't know, something about this little guy being full of attitude I find amusing.
Bug off, mushroom mouth.
Oh, yeah? How about a nose job? Naughty turtle, you've been hitting the sauce again. Well, have some more.
Honestly, I think he did a better job than the actual Mario movie Toad. Even his voice honestly just sounds close to how Toad actually sounds anyway. Then there's Bowser, or well, King Koopa as he's called. I think it's common knowledge that Bowser's Japanese name was King Koopa and Bowser's his localized name. Now, Bowser is pretty much the most wild character in the show and definitely the most inconsistent. He's a very well-known villain, eliciting his evil and nastiness, partaking in every dirty double-crossing tactic known to man, and even some that really raise an eyebrow.
Round those pests up so I can sell them all into slavery.
However, the voice acting really saves the character as Harvey Atkin plays him with such charisma that it makes so many of his line reads endearing and kind of hilarious.
Howdy, your friends, Princess Toadstool. That's goodbye in Italian. I make linguine out of you. I'd like to see you try it, meatball. My throne! My throne room! You'll pay for this, plumbers!
It's like 4Kids DDD. Not at all the voice you'd expect, but damn if the delivery doesn't make them amazing. Like seriously, it's amazing. It's like Charlie Adler in Cow and Chicken. Every line is hilarious just by the delivery.
Of course Flem's dad couldn't explain what had happened because he's an idiot! I was there the day you were born.
You was?
Of course I was. I'm the one of you ever do!
Bowser spends nearly every episode trying to cause problems for some reason, whether it's going to some new land taken over by force or actively hunting down the heroes to destroy them and abducting Peach. Though it's weird to think that Bowser, unlike his modern depictions, is not in love with her and forced her to marry him. Yeah, it wasn't really a thing in this era, but it was the main element in the Mario OVA, aka the first actual Mario movie. The one exception is an episode where he did force her to marry him or he'll kill the bros and keep her subject stone, but it is largely just so that he'd be the legal ruler of the Mushroom Kingdom without fighting for it. But speaking of which, this episode does seem to indicate that the show takes place during the first game, and thus the obscure plot. That Bowser has taken over the Mushroom Kingdom and turned his subjects to the bricks and captured Peach since he's the only one who could turn them back. And that would explain why there's so little actual mushroom people around and why so many episodes have them trying to find a way to truly defeat him. It's actually kind of interesting and makes the show feel a bit more accurate. Though many people point out Bowser's inconsistencies in designs and designs. First off, that he really doesn't look like Bowser. Now I don't really mind it since he does actually look pretty accurate to his original NES sprite, but I read they originally were going to use the Mario Bros. 2 antagonist Wart, but for whatever reason just fused the two. But honestly I don't think it's too big a deal. Though the different personas he has are a lot more distracting. Nearly every episode he adopts a new identity and theme, even to his name, to the point where it almost feels like there's dozens of different Bowsers running around. Also that he's more King K. Rool than Bowser. Some I can excuse, like maybe just getting in theme for the kingdom he's trying to conquer, but like I don't even know how I can possibly explain dressing in a diaper and a bonnet to enslave actual babies. Yeah, when I say the show gets weird, I really do mean it. But yeah, to the show itself. Now on paper, again, the show does seem pretty simple. The hero is going to many different lands and foiling Bowser's many schemes to get power. But in execution, the show is pretty much anything but. So the first episode actually does a pretty good job at introducing everything with a decent plot. Apparently, it starts with the Mario Bros already saving Peach from Bowser and looking for magic to restore her kingdom and get them back to Brooklyn. More on that later. However, Toad soon gets kidnapped by a weird flying birdo, kinda weird, who has bad eyesight and thinks that Toad is her lost son. So the gang has to go and rescue them, also implying Toad really isn't a lot off screen.
Toad saved my life 100 times.
Also greatly showing the characters' personalities.
Don't worry, Princess. Luigi and me will climb that mountain before you can say spaghetti and meatballs. I can't. I'm allergic to mountains.
The birdo doesn't listen to Toad when he says he's not their kid, but climbing the mountain, Bowser spies catch wind of them as Bowser sends his army to eliminate them. Also giving us that infamous feet-licking scene that actually makes sense if you watch it.
Royal and regal goopiness.
Watch it, soldier. When I want my feet licked, I'll ask for it. I want my feet licked.
But the heroes have to fight off Bowser's army onslaught in an avalanche and get snowed in, but luckily find a fire flower they can use for a power-up. And also finding the actual frozen birdo baby after the avalanche and thaw it out. Coincidentally, as the mama is teaching Toad to fly and drops him from the sky, but also answers the long-standing debate of is Toad wearing a hat or not. But Toad has to take the baby back up the mountain to the mother as Bowser leads the next assault, depowering Mario and surrounding them. But Toad and the birdo mom work together now to fight out the army from the air, making them retreat. Even ending with a food-based joke, which is pretty much how every episode ends. So yeah, decent story, not great or anything, but things were cohesive and unified and did a good job with the world and the characters. But you'll soon see a cohesive plot is actually a rarity in this show. This show is kind of infamous for it, but most of the episodes barely have anything to do with the show itself and just kind of spiral into nonsense. Like, it's not completely incomprehensible, but a lot of times things just sort of happen with very little plot or thematic cohesion, and it's one of the show's biggest problems. An earlier episode was randomly in a western setting with Bowser kidnapping Peach and putting a bounty on the Bros' head so that bounty hunters will eliminate them. Honestly, not a bad idea. It could work, but the plot just kind of devolves to nonsense eventually and loses the plot, which happens to a lot of episodes. Okay, I can't be too mad because this episode does give us the legendary pasta power meme. That was amazing.
Pasta power!
But like, then they're in a riverboat land with Bowser randomly captaining a steamboat with Mario and Luigi have to save her, teaming up with freaking Mark Twain? How the hell is Mark Twain here? Or another where they're in dinosaur land and Bowser and his minions are cavemen, Bowser's literally a dinosaur now, and Mario gets bitten by a snake and is in a coma and needs to make him a pizza or else he'll freaking die?
Wake up, Mario! Please, wake up!
A revolutionary war parody where the Toads are fighting Red Coat Koopas led by goddamn George Washington? What the hell is going on? And that's also not mentioning the other infamous aspects of the show, like the amount of parodies. Like, really, it feels like over half of this show is parodying something else. Now, sometimes it's passable, like when they take inspiration from legends or mythology like King Arthur or Greek myth, since those usually bleed into a lot of fantasy stories anyway, but then they just straight up use whatever notable property exists, whether it makes sense or not. Godzilla, RoboCop, Sherlock Holmes, Mad Max, Zorro, Lone Ranger, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, the Book of Exodus? What the actual hell is this?
Spectacular spaghetti! The Red Sauce Sea is parting!
And so, Mariosis led the Hebrew shrooms to the desert of World 2, where they suffered for 40 levels until finally reaching the promised flagpole. Okay, yeah, this is an infamous part of the show, and as people complain about how unfaithful or bonkers it is. But there is a reason. See, this is when there was only the first NES game and Mario 2 to work off of. The Mario world wasn't defined well at all, and it was already an incoherent nightmare to work with. The parody episodes were largely made because the writers struggled with what the source material gave them. And with the time crunch the show had, they had to just rely on easy movie parodies for plot or more traditional trope-based ones. Like, imagine if you were in this situation. You only had the first 2 Mario games to work with, and now go make 52 different plots quickly. Yeah, it becomes a lot more understandable in that regard, and why I'm hesitant to hate something without being aware of the pressures and issues from the circumstances. Something I wish so many other reviewers kept in mind. It also explains a lot of the animation errors, which the show is also infamous for. You name it, from miscoloration, the mismatched voices, which had many people call the show out for being cheap. But honestly, it's not like the same stuff didn't happen to other 80s shows like the 87 Ninja Turtles. Though one of the most infamous errors comes from the Indiana Jones parody, where the parody character Indiana Joe is animated without a face, for all of his screen time being the most jarring. People said it was probably because the face animation wasn't sent back from overseas, but apparently the writer said Joe was supposed to be drawn as a caricature of Harrison Ford, but it's likely Dic removed it to avoid a lawsuit and ignore the massive problem of this faceless guy. Maybe he just got cursed or something. Weirdly, in this show, it's not even too strange. The show is so wild, it kinda fits. Also, this episode has Bowser wear Koopa branded Nazi armbands. What the hell? And yeah, there's still a lot of weird stuff regardless of the parody. Like Koopzilla's has a Mushroom Kingdom version of Japan with like Japanese people in it? Like what? This happens a few times, so I guess it's not that weird that Peach is a random human. Does this imply that the Mushroom Kingdom is a weird parallel universe like Termina in Zelda? This scientist guy has made something called Super Sushi, which is a power-up that turns whoever eats it massive. Wow, a power-up that turns the user giant? Imagine if that was a thing. And they seek to use it to defeat Bowser, which is the common plot in the episodes to go to a new land to find a secret weapon to stop him. However, Bowser eats it first, becoming a kaiju in obvious Godzilla homage terrorizing the city. Eventually, Mario is forced to take one and have a kaiju fight, leading to the weirdest shit I have ever seen. Like, imagine showing this out of context. Also, did this predict Mario 64? Yeah, it's incredibly dumb, but I kind of had fun with this one. There's also Robo Koopa, with a similar plot in a sci-fi land, where Bowser held another scientist hostage to make a giant robotic suit that makes him unstoppable. And that's honestly pretty awesome. Reminds me of the Tegadons in Ben 10, forcing the heroes to retreat and rescue the scientists so that he can make them a suit to fight back in a mecha battle. Again, these plots are bonkers and have no place to be in Mario, but they do go all out in them and make it enjoyable. Though you can see Bowser really does kind of force his way to plots with new identities, even if it doesn't make sense, like in Koopenstein and Count Koopula. Koopenstein I can at least understand if Bowser took a scientist's persona trying to make his robot before he ended up becoming the actual monster. It even gave us a really great joke trying to get the bro's brain for his robot.
First, we'll measure your combined brain power. What? Impossible! A potted plant scores higher than that. No one is that stupid.
But Koopula has him as a tomato sauce-sucking vampire, and it's kind of treated as if he was always one, even trying to turn Peach into one.
To initiate you into the loyal brotherhood of tomato sauce vampires.
Brotherhood? But I'm a girl.
Also, he literally waterboards Mario. What the f***? Did also give us some really cool monster versions of enemies, especially these cool werewolf Koopas. We see some I got in the game.
Snotty Turtle, you've been hitting the sauce again.
Also, there's a random shy guy who I swear is the voice of Milhouse for some reason.
Yes, your loyal Koopaness. They're looking for Sheldon, the witch doctor. They want to see him so he can mix a magic potion that will put you out of business.
But yeah, Bowser is just forced as the main antagonist in the show in nearly every episode, with one exception. We get to see some other leadership in Rotunda Land, where the gang is captured by Queen Rotunda. Wow, Queen Rotunda, how big is she? I expected bigger, honestly. Anyway, this evolves into a love potion plot with Mario, but it does end with this prince getting some of that and falling in love with her like she wanted. And I'm gonna assume he was already into her because love potions are insanely messed up conceptually. Also, one episode had these weird alien guys that straight up play the Legend of Zelda theme. Hope this isn't foreshadowing. So yeah, for the most part the show follows this formula without much coherency between episodes or extra plot. But there actually kind of is. If you remember, long ago, the show brought up how the Mario Bros are trying to get back to Brooklyn because apparently the warp pipe was one way. So I guess the live action segments are like a prequel. And it did play an important part in 2 episodes that I think are pretty standout in the show. First being Brooklyn Bound, where the two are so fatigued by the strain of fighting Bowser, it wishes to get back home and coincidentally meet a legendary plumber, also from Brooklyn, Sal, who ends up taking a warp pipe through the kingdom stuck for years, who has found a warp pipe to get back out to the real world. However, it's a one-time, one-way trip, so if the bros take it, they can go home, but they can't come back and can't stop Bowser, and likely doom the Mushroom Kingdom. And it's like, damn, this is an actual dilemma. The Super Show is having legitimate drama. It also has one of Peach's strongest moments in the show, where she does want the two to go back home after all they did for her. Even without them, they're defenseless against Bowser.
Your big chance to go home, and I want you to take it.
Oh?
I mean it, Mario. You've already helped me more than I deserve. Go home.
Even with a legitimate emotional goodbye when they hesitate to take the pipe before it activates.
Real nice knowing you, princess.
Goodbye, guys. I'll miss you.
Don't go blabbing it around, but she's not the only one.
Again, there's like actual good drama here. This show is making me actually feel something. What the hell? However, Bowser catches up to them and encounters Peach and Toad just as the warp is going to activate. As the two selflessly give up their chance to go home to save them, as Sal alone goes back. It's actually one of the stronger episodes of the show, and I think should be talked about more. Then there's Flatbush Koopa, where it really opens like the conflict has been completed. Bowser's gone and the Mushroom Kingdom and all its residents are saved, which I think is the only time that's actually showing that Peach actually rules a kingdom here. Also, apparently they did manage to find a warp pipe back to Brooklyn, but luckily it goes both ways, so they have to truly say goodbye. Kinda wild that this contradicts the previous episode, but I guess it works as a supposed finale to the conflict. Supposed. But once they get back, they see Bowser is already invading New York with his minions running amok. Wait a minute, that also kind of happened in the Mario movie. Jeez, do I have to make a counter or something? But yeah, Bowser is also using his turn people to bricks thing, which really should be used on the heroes more in the real world, causing the bros to have to stop them again, with the Princess and Toad's help, ultimately driving him back to the Mushroom Kingdom and destroying the pipe so he can't invade again. But unfortunately, also making them trapped there too. God damn, no one told me that the freaking Super Mario Bros. Super Show had a Samurai Jack-esque subplot. Honestly, I think these episodes are pretty underrated, and it does show there's some actual substance here, and it's not all just bonkers stuff. But yeah, honestly, I did enjoy watching this through a lot. I mean, sure, it's not really a faithful adaptation, and it's not exactly great or well written, but I can't deny the zaniness and imagination that came to try and make a series out of Mario when it's practically in its infancy. And it's actually super fun and had a few great moments and lines.
Don't you ever think about anything but food?
What else is there?
Friends? What friends?
Well, there's, how about, all right, invite my mother. She'll show up for the cake.
You're making Mama so happy.
Gee, I was born with a plunger in my hand.
I know. Boy was awfully hard on Mom.
I mean, there's a few memes that came from the show, of course.
Luigi, you gotta act tough.
I'll take a milk.
I actually think it has some underrated aspects, and that's better than how a lot of people treat it. To me, it's just like the live action segments. Sure, it's corny, cheesy, and not too well written, but there is such a strong charm from the presentation and performances that even if it's not perfect, it just makes you smile. But don't watch too much of it in a row, it will eventually degrade you mentally. But still, I recommend to give it a watch, at the very least to see how different this Mario is from the Mario we know now. I mean, we're also gonna see Mario getting waterboarded.
Somebody call me a plumber. You're a plumber.
But that wasn't the end of the Mario cartoon, as it got quite a few sequels, starting with Adventures of Mario 3. What a title. So yeah, with Super Mario Bros. 3, it got a new series to tie into it. And a pretty lame intro, no funny rap this time, but it does explain what's going on, with Bowser back with his new army, and especially his new Koopa kids. So since this is tying into the games, the Koopalings come back, and they're kind of the most infamous part of the show, since this was in development before Mario 3 got introduced to the West, so they didn't have their official names yet. And again, I can't really blame them, I mean, what are you gonna do? They were mostly all given new distinctive personalities, which honestly even Nintendo hasn't done for a lot of them. Ludwig has been renamed Kooky, and has been given a sort of mad scientist archetype, which honestly isn't too different from Ludwig. I'm pretty sure he's the smartest of the Koopalings anyway. Roy is named Bully, and fits being the biggest and meanest of the bunch, honestly fitting. Morton has been named Big Mouth, and he feels weirdly small, he's usually one of the bigger ones. He got that name because his gimmick is that he never shuts up, which really isn't like Game Morton at all. Granted, Morton has no like consistent characterization anyway. Also, am I the only one who finds it weird that Morton has like Kiss makeup on, but he has nothing to do with them, not even a name homage? It feels like a missed opportunity. Barry is cheesy, and I kind of love how his eyes are so swollen. He always looks like the Lisa looking up me, and I just find that really funny for some reason. The show doesn't give him too much of a gimmick aside from just scheming a ton, but granted the games don't really do much for him either, he's pretty boring. Wendy is named Cootie Pie, and is a spoiled rotten teenage girl stereotype and is one of the more prominent characters. And honestly, it's pretty much exactly how Wendy ended up, funny enough. Lemmy and Iggy are named Hip and Hop and function more as a duo of twins and are the youngest in the show, getting to childish mischief. And while it's accurate to Lemmy, Iggy lost his inventor and genie personality, mostly because it just ended up going to Ludwig. So yeah, things are kind of mixed, but for the most part, I don't really mind the new interpretation. Wild are the mostly designed accurate, but feel weird next to the Super Show Bowser. Also, Koopa is finally called Bowser in the show, or at least Bowser Koopa, so I guess that's his last name.
I am Bowser Koopa, King Koopa to you.
But also as well, they removed the live action bits, unfortunately. And Lou Albano and Danny Wells no longer voice Mario and Luigi, but these new guys still do a good job and are pretty iconic in their own right with a lot of legendary reads. But that's not the only thing they add, as this show does incorporate more consistent themes and story elements than its predecessor. Not only are the Koopalings new, but they brought in the magic wands in their game. Now, Bowser did have his magic wand in the Super Show to stonify people, but these act pretty much as transformation wands to create more conflict in the show and making them more of a threat. But also with the Doom Ship, which is Bowser's flying airship fleet from the games, now utilized as an ultimate threat Bowser can use to conquer lands and fight our heroes. So there's more consistent story potential in making Bowser and his legion a threat with others right to the random personas used to have. But also that the show utilizes the power-ups much more than the Super Show did, with the inclusion of many Mario 3 abilities, and used them a lot more, which is really fun and makes the show feel more game accurate. It also ties into the plot of 3 with multiple kings of the worlds the Koopalings have transformed to take their kingdoms, so more world cohesion here. As well as that, it seems that the issue of being stuck in the Mushroom Kingdom is resolved, as now there's super casual travels between worlds through Warp Pipe. Like, wow, did something happen? It's called the real world though. Does this imply the Mushroom Kingdom is fake? And this gets used as a plot in a lot of episodes of casual travel between both, which is really interesting. And also the Mushroom Kingdom is a standard location, so Peach's Kingdom is at the forefront, so no more wandering Hobo Peach. So yeah, they did introduce a lot of interesting stuff to this show that ties into the games and can be really good at making plots. But how does this show compare to the Super Show, and did it fix its problems? And honestly, at least writing wise, it kinda did. Now, as I said, a lot of the Super Show's problems come from its inane writing and then this happened storytelling, not to mention its dependence on too many parody and trope-based plots. Now, this show fixes the issues in a few ways. One is that they're no longer 22-minute episodes, but double 11-minute episodes. And yeah, I think this is for the best, since so often the Super Show dragged and extended plots longer than it should, leading to a much more tedious viewing experience a lot of the time. But condensing the plots now really helps them in this case, having much more natural length and much better pacing. The streamlined story also gets rid of "and then this happened" writing that played the first show, using a lot more consistent story devices and keeping plots coherent for the most part. And it keeps things much more rooted in the source material, abandoning a lot of the parody aspects and working straight forward with the world that was introduced, now the concepts I previously said introduced. So this made a lot of the episodes more enjoyable when they were more coherent and better written, and still had some good lines and jokes sprinkled in. Unfortunately, the animation did take a dive, and this is when the Super Show's already kind of infamous animation, with quite a bit more noticeable cell errors and kind of jumpy art. But I don't really find myself too bothered with it, since most of the drawings themselves look fine, and the better writing makes me mostly fine with it. And it utilizes more coherent plots, with the setup being a lot more like the first episode of the Super Show I mentioned. Peach actually does get more spotlight as the ruler of the Mushroom Kingdom, now that it is a recurring location, and does show a lot of her upstanding and responsible characterization. Like the one where Peach is treated as overworked and goes to vacation in Hawaii, with the Mario Bros taking over responsibilities, but sabotaged by Bowser, makes them so swamped as he enacts his plan to make a robot Peach to take her place and crown him the king. But the princess does come back, accepting a responsibility to foil them. But also when Princess Toadstool for president, it does prove that she's actually democratically elected. So it's not hypocritical in the Super Show that she fights alongside Washington for mushroom independence. God, I didn't expect to go back to that. There she challenges Bowser that if he wants her kingdom so bad he can run for it. And he does, but he has Ludwig make him a nice guy, pushing to make him kind and charitable, and that does seem to work in his favor since the Toads are all sheeple. But in reality, he didn't need to, he probably would have won anyway. Another plot I think is notable is 7 Continents for 7 Koopas, where Bowser invades the real world and has the Koopalings all take over a continent and cause chaos with their magic. Some are kind of lame, like Roy graffitiing the Great Wall, but then Ludwig turns all the animals of Africa into stuffed animals? Jesus Christ, did he kill and taxidermy them all? Also Lemmy forcing all of America to see his telethon.
I want your money, I'm strapped for cash. I need your money too lazy to get a job.
Peach, though, is the one to save the day, which again, I appreciate the show gives Peach more to do. That's not the only time something like this has happened, as an early episode has Wendy whines so much that Bowser is forced to have her take over the USA by force. God, was it that easy? Just take the White House? Then again, this was the Bush era. He didn't even care when he was about to drown. Also, with Bowser taking over Venice with his doom stuff for Wendy. Yeah, this happens a lot. Even leading to probably the most infamous episode, guest starring the famous band Milli Vanilli. Ironically, 2 weeks before their infamous lip sync scandal. Turns out Peach is weirdly a fan of them for some reason.
City and my favorite music group.
Yeah, that won't last long. Okay, but she is absolutely slaying that outfit. Oh my god, such an iconic fit. However, Wendy kidnaps the two for a prior performance, and they also voice act themselves in. Oh my god, they are so terrible it ends up being hilarious.
No!
We're nuts.
We're dweebs!
This is terrible. You turn us back to normal people right now.
But there are more interesting episodes like Ludwig, someone making a time machine to stop the Mario Bros from ever getting to the Mushroom Kingdom in the first place, but also turns them on to babies, leading to a meme moment.
Hey, Mario!
I feel Ludwig should have been like reversed AIDS to nothing considering he's a child. Also, I love how babies can just walk around New York and no one cares. But what gets me is that like I don't think they ever maintain the timeline, so past Mario and Luigi never show up, so I guess it's replaced by present day ones. Also, Dad Zelda has Wendy believe that Bowser isn't their real dad, and eventually Miyamoto would agree, and use their magic to revive a Godzilla animatronic to be their dad, but also he doesn't really know what's going on. And a random TMNT reference with Bowser turning some of his kids to sneaking, lying, cheating giant ninja Koopas to take over Big Land. Though on the topic, the show does use the source material too, with bringing in the kings from the games again, and bringing the corresponding levels, which again is a nice video game cohesion, while also exploring the world just beyond the Mushroom Kingdom. It's a nice balance. And again, utilizing the power-ups much more, making for better and engaging action sequences like in Super Koopa, where Bowser uses a pendant to give him and combine the power-ups when the Mario Bros can, since there's no power-ups in the real world. Wait, Bowser using power-ups? Wild considering how that eventually happened. This is actually the finale, and I'm happy at least it ends with a big battle. Okay, but who designed these nippers? Just what the hell's wrong with them? Even having some topical episodes like one called Mushroomers, where a vacationing family ends up in the Mushroom Kingdom, and the locals really don't know they're humans and that are terrifying as the rumor mill churns, saying that they're invading aliens trying to take over the world. And funny how Bowser's involvement isn't out of malice, but he wants to fight the alien threat against his family. But again, shows you that you shouldn't rely on instantiated rumors or fear-mongering. But the most topical and kind of famous episode is True Colors, which really is a decent racism metaphor. Bowser's army tries to take over Toad Town, but they're too well unified and they repel back as troops. So the Koopalings get a plan to pay the townsfolk in red and blue. No one cares at first until the Koopalings impersonate the other side, creating problems and seeding distrust and hatred of the other, deeming a few bad cases to define the other as evil, and jumping to conclusions, to the point where the town basically factionalized itself by completely arbitrary assignments and is going to civil war. Is this the origin of TF2? At least that's Ben 10 Alien Force episode. Even the Mario Bros are affected and often judging the other by their color and the assigned otherness, until they realize it was the Koopalings' plan and it's stupid to fight over it.
Awkward sibling hug?
Awkward sibling hug.
Pat, pat.
It helps to stop the fight, unifying them both by the love of their princess as common ground, and expose the Koopalings of doing this to disorganize the kingdom. And the kind of memetic ending.
It's not a person's color that counts, it's the kind of person they are inside. Think they'll ever learn that lesson in the real world? Yeah, when humans get as smart as mushrooms.
Honestly, better than the original one they had.
Takes all colors to make a rainbow. Except black. There's no black in a rainbow.
Honestly, somewhat decent racism metaphor. Kinda goes into the roots of arbitrary assignments, and how people use the actions of few to announce an entire group of people, how it inevitably doesn't matter and unified people are stronger. Pretty good work. Granted, there is another episode, Oh Brother, that's a bit bad since Mario and Luigi are at each other's throats through it. I understand sibling rivalry, but this is pretty out of character, even if it does end with them reaffirming their brotherly bond. Maybe this is the origin of the Mario and Luigi hatred stigma online. But honestly, I did enjoy this series a lot and find it underrated. It's overshadowed by the Super Show and Mario World, but I think it did the Mario universe in a TV series the best, very well utilizing the aspects of the game and making well-paced plots and stories to support it. It's probably the objective best show in this video, and I really recommend you do watch it. If you thought the Super Show wasn't accurate enough, I think this might help you out a lot. But this isn't the last, as there's one more left. Super Mario World, named after the SNES game and basically a version of that. Will say though, the theme song is much better than 3. Like, this is a jam.
Super Mario World, it's a blast from the past. It's Super Mario World, you got to move fast.
So it's not really stated in this show, but in its final and most iconic episode, Mama Luigi, it explains that apparently they sent Bowser from the Mushroom Kingdom for good and took a vacation to Dinosaur Land, which is actually accurate to the game. However, Bowser found their way there and is using it as his new target, and I guess is forcing the game to stay to help out the natives. By the way, they're caveman, but in the games there's no human inhabitants whatsoever, so that's weird. Speaking of, Toad is absent from this series, but to be fair, he wasn't in the game anyway. What happened to him in context? Where is he?
We need you to stay behind, Toad. It's always me. It's not fair.
Well, we got a few new characters. One, obviously, is Yoshi since he first appeared in this game. Now, Yoshi has become one of the most iconic and reoccurring characters in this franchise, but I really don't think this cartoon did him justice. One, he talks, which, okay, yeah, Yoshi can talk in some games, but they also gave him a really annoying baby mentality. And speaking in the third person, which does make most of his dialogue pretty painful.
Llamas and Princess captured by Koopa Wizard because of Oogtar. The fire plant lives on the other side of the river. And I'm scared of water!
Doesn't help that he's drawn pretty weird. Like, I don't know, Yoshi's one of those characters where you really need to draw right. Honestly, I think it would have been better if he was just a silent animal sidekick. Him talking doesn't really add much. And it kind of makes me wince when he shows up. But that's really nothing compared to Oogtar. Now, as I said, I didn't mind Toad despite people calling him annoying. One, he's a little fun with his big attitude and a small body. He does have some good one-liners and moments through the show. And most of all, he legitimately was a character and helped out in plenty of cases, sometimes even more than the bros. Oogtar, though, is literally what I thought Toad would be. He speaks in dumb, broken English caveman dialogue mixed with an annoying voice to boot.
Oogtar, king of jungle. Oogtar not lost. Oogtar just not sure where he is.
And with that, he really serves no purpose than to be a little shit and cause problems. Thank God he's in a few episodes, but man, when he's the focus, it just really drags down the experience, especially Ghost R Us, where it's mostly just the two of them in painful, padded dialogue.
Koopa Wizard because of Oogtar.
Worry not, Dino Dude. Oogtar help rescue friends.
I don't like to be mean, and I'll excuse a lot. I'll excuse a lot of problems in the Super Show, but if a show actively annoys me, then it kills my enjoyment. Apparently, Oogtar was gonna be a Bart Simpson XP, hell even named Bart Zan, but I guess Dic removed that for copyright, so we just have an extremely annoying little douchebag with no redeeming qualities. The show only had 13 episodes that were 12 minutes long, which isn't a lot. Even Mario 3 had double. Kinda wild how the episodes have been continually halved in every iteration, but these episodes feel long and for a bad reason. I said that Mario 3 had good pacing in its episodes with decent writing that made it pretty enjoyable, striking a good balance of zaniness but coherency. But Mario World unfortunately just moves at a snail's pace. Like, I'm not kidding, the pacing is so bad in this show. These have like no energy or motion. It's just like it's trying to extend to the runtime. I feel myself nodding off so often, and the episodes don't really do anything to warrant any attention. And that good writing from Mario 3 is gone too, still with a lot of "and then this happened" writing. I know people love Mama Luigi, and it's iconic, but it really is the biggest example of a completely incoherent story. I think what makes it worse is the animation. I know I said that Mario 3 suffered in animation, but Mario World is a stilted, slow animation with so little energy across scenes. Like seriously, sometimes I can count the frames. It really makes the scenes feel even more slow when the characters move so sluggishly. Also, this of all shows has the characters going off model the most. Oftentimes drawn with such huge heads that they look more like dolls than people. Peach especially looks off most of the time. Arguably doesn't even use the source material too well, staying in one relative location despite the variety in the games. Like I guess there's a ghost house and Bowser's castle, but that's it. I guess it did have some of the new power-ups like the Cape, P-Balloon, and Yoshi Wings, but that's really it. And yeah, if you can't tell, I didn't really enjoy watching most of this show. It's iconic because of the many memes it has, but if you watch it, it's actually really draining. The Super Show, despite its nonsense, still has some good jokes and one-liners sprinkled in, so it's still enjoyable, but Mario World really doesn't. Like, they don't really make snappy or witty lines for most jokes. Most of the humor kind of comes from antics, which might be good for young kids, but there's really no actual substance after. And it really doesn't help my enjoyment. It makes so many episodes just boring when there's no good story or no good jokes and nothing really grab your interest. I mean, even did a circus episode that was boring, and I love circus episodes. Not to mention a good chunk of the series is the Mario crew introduced modern stuff to the cave people and it backfires. I did hear that it was super rust and messy on the writer's side, and some of the writers were super burned out with Mario already, and yeah, it does show. But I don't want to be too mean. There were a handful of decent episodes. One was one of those diet episodes where Bowser opened some fast food stand. hand. With addicting food he sells for money, but they have the side effect of turning people who eat too much of it into weird chicken hybrids. He also wants to serve out to dinosaurs for extra cash. But oh my god, I've seen a lot of weird shit in this video, but nothing, I mean nothing, has genuinely upset me than seeing chicken hybrid Luigi and Yoshi. Like, this fundamentally disturbs me. This is my new sleep paralysis demon. God, they look like those weird chicken people from Twilight Princess. Out of all these types of episodes, I think this is the one that most puts me off from eating fast food, and probably just eating in general. Gopher Bash is notable for actually having decent animation throughout, and Yoshi actually looking like Yoshi. Also, just find these Monty moles really cute. They're so huggable looking. And they gave us this mean and possibly predicted Big Yoshi. And a little learning had an interesting idea of Lemmy and Iggy wanting to go to school, and I just kind of wish they committed more to it because that's a really good concept. And of course, there's the famous Mama Luigi, by far the most popular episode that spawned so many memes, even if objectively I have to say it's not great. I mean, it even got what I think was the first big reanimated collab on YouTube, and yeah, that was freaking legendary, and elevated the episode by the cool different art styles and visual gags. But really, the memes that resulted from this show are what have elevated it and have given its place in history. Like, there's so many you can't count, from amazing lines,
Wherever you are! Yeah! Mama Luigi? Hey, it's a stone, Luigi. You didn't make it. That's Mama Luigi to you, Mario.
freeze frames of the awkward animation, but still, as a whole, I can't really recommend this series unless you're nostalgic for it, which I'm sure many people are gonna get mad at me for not liking it, or if you just want to see the origins of these memes. And yeah, ironically, this went out like the dinosaurs, as its low ratings led to it being cancelled and virtually ending Dic's properties with Mario. And it really was the last Mario animated thing until the recent Illumination movie, Wild. But that wasn't the last Nintendo cartoon done in this era, as they also gave a shot with none other than The Legend of Zelda. Now with the Super Show, every Friday it aired along with an episode of The Legend of Zelda. Even the live action segments commented on it, leading to some weird exchanges.
Oh, scary. Something tells me we'd better be right back after these exciting scenes from The Legend of Zelda.
While we try and hold things together down here, why don't you watch these scenes from the next Legend of Zelda?
Now, the Legend of Zelda cartoon is a bit infamous for some reasons. But again, like the Super Show, it was only when the first two games released, so very little was actually defined in the franchise. I'd argue A Link to the Past was really when the franchise got its core attributes and themes that carried on through the rest of the series. Admittedly, here Hyrule is more of a generic fantasy land, but again, it wasn't before the core aspects of the franchise really got introduced, so it was more a generic medieval world at the time. And the premise is pretty simple and somewhat accurate. Link and Zelda live in the land of Hyrule, with the Triforce of Wisdom, and fight off Ganon and his monster army trying to steal it, as he also holds a Triforce of Power, as uniting both will give its user infinite power. You might wonder, wait, where's the Triforce of Courage? It's a third part. Well, funny thing, the Triforce of Courage wasn't mentioned at all in Zelda 1, and only appeared in Zelda 2 in the final battle against Shadow Link, so it's kind of fitting it's not really a thing here. Now, it seems like this would be a good adaptation of the games, especially since, again, not much was really established at the time, but what kills it to many people are the characters. Mainly Link. Yeah, Link is a massive detraction from his modern depiction, mostly because he talks. A lot. And unlike the silent, stoic hero the franchise is known for, he's a talkative, arrogant, smarmy jackass who's obsessed with getting it on with Zelda. Like seriously, this dude might give Johnny a run for his money.
Zelda!
Link!
Oh boy, smooching time!
You know who he reminds me of? Rad from OKKO. Like, it kind of fits a little too well at times.
Get this belt off.
No!
What do you want?
A kiss. Come on. Another beautiful day in the magical kingdom of Hyrule. Boring place.
You know you like me. I could date anyone I want.
Almost sounds like you understand that you can be an obnoxious jerk.
What? No, I don't. I'm perfect.
This characterization turns a lot of people off, and I completely understand. Not only is he well off in the interpretation of Link, but he's pretty unlikable regardless. But for me, I kinda love it. I just find it so entertaining. I will admit, it's a terrible interpretation of a character, and he can't be obnoxious, but it's like that Johnny Bravo factor. He is such an arrogant dumbass who gets put in his place so often, it just makes me chuckle so much. Like seriously, what is this guy doing?
After saving the Triforce from evil, the hero gets his reward. Ow!
Granted, his lust over Zelda has not aged well.
Looking good, princess. especially from this angle.
But again, in that Johnny Bravo factor, that he never really gets anywhere with that, so it makes up for it and it's treated like he's just a big creep. Personally, I think this interpretation is a lot better if you think of Link not as the reincarnation of the hero of time, but just some jackass named Link who's somewhat competent in a fight and everyone just thinks he's the real one. On the other side, I think this has a legitimately good Zelda, like no joke. She's my favorite Zelda in the franchise, even more than Spirit Track Zelda. One, she's always involved in the action, and the series includes her a lot, which is great that so many of the games she's in the sidelines and barely involved in the story. Second, she has a really great personality. She's confident, sassy, cynical, and holds her own in a fight, and you really didn't see that too often in cartoons those days.
Are supposed to be rescued by handsome heroes, not other beautiful maidens. Well, hey! Pardon me!
And she doesn't take crap from anyone, especially Link, and immediately shuts down any of his advances. She is an icon. Like, she makes up for asshole Link and makes the stick work. Apparently, the dynamic of the characters was based off characters from the comedy drama series Moonlighting, which might have been more obvious at the time, but now the illusion is lost on most viewers. Also leading to the infamous catchphrase.
Nice job, hero.
Hey, excuse me, princess.
Again, I find it so corny, I kind of love it. Relationship kind of comes across as the tsundere type, which I'm not a fan of, but a later episode does imply that deep down Zelda truly does love Link back. I think it's that they fought by each other's sides so much. Of course they build up a bond, but Link's arrogance and flirtatiousness really puts her off, and if he'd stopped that crap, they'd actually be together. At least how I see it. And there are moments that prove it where she does want to kiss Link but gets interrupted for some reason, so at least it's somewhat mutual. However, Ganon is also kind of infamous. Now again, at this point, Ganon's lore was solid. He was just this big evil sorcerer pigman. Admittedly, he is somewhat accurate with his magic and minions with the pig motif, even if he's pretty small and humanoid. People complain about the teleportation, but that was literally half of what he did in the fight. But he is written not really as too much of a serious threat, and mostly kind of bumbling and incompetent, prone to fits of anger or other dumbassery and being goofy, which makes it hard to take him seriously. Especially when he just starts punching the air like, what are you doing? Again, maybe he's not really Ganon, maybe some sorcerer just think he's Ganon or like agging him. Oh yeah, there's also a fairy named Sprite who helps out the two and has a crush on Link. Though she can help out, she gets in the way between Link wanting Zelda, making a weird love triangle. Wow, Link with an annoying female fairy companion, I guess is predicted Navi. Granted, she also gives Link a taste of his own medicine, so it's kinda cathartic. So yeah, aside from the characters, how was the show itself? Honestly, I enjoyed it. I think it kinda gets a bad rap. Again, you gotta take in the context. It's an 80s TV series based off a video game with barely anything to go off of. I'm not coming in with grand expectations of story or modern game accuracy. I just want to have fun with it. And I think it's pretty fun and a good adventure show. Just embrace the cheese and the corniness and have a good time. I think the Ringer is a good introduction to the show. Granted, it does open up with Link whining and perving on Zelda, but thankfully gets interrupted when Moblin's attack to get the Triforce, but Link shows off his skill, able to easily defeat them. Zelda though is miffed, showing more of their back and forth dynamic, saying that he needs to guard the Triforce while she judges the amateur magician contest. Then we cut to Ganon in the underworld, pissed that his minions failed, and figures to do it himself, disguised to enter the contest, and to make a distraction for Link, turns a lizard into a giant dragon, which I think is Aqua Mentis, the first boss, so Link has to fight it in an admittedly kinda cool and well animated sequence as Ganon steals the piece and escapes. But they use one of the magician's spells to get ahead to fight them before Ganon can escape back to the underworld to join the pieces, and have to fight together back to back to fend off his minions with some admittedly good moves, even if Ganon's kind of a dumbass and bombing before he makes a getaway. Granted, Link ruins it by being pervy again, but at least again it does seem that some feeling is mutual, but Sprite ruins it. Again, I think it's enjoyable if you just have fun and don't take it too seriously. I think people are way too mean to it. I think it does a decent job with the source material, at least with what was there at the time. It does include a lot of aspects from it, like the enemy loot and weapons, as well as including a ton of enemies in the game. Moblins, Gibdos, Stalfolks, Octoroks, Tektykes, Linos, Gleeok, Aquamentis, Dodongos, and it does capture some feeling of the game in its environment and dark confusing dungeons. Granted, Link doesn't really use his sword as a sword, just using it to shoot lasers, but again, there were a lot of harsh standards and practices at the time, like even TMNT got trolled for the use of weaponry, so it was needed. And at least it was in the game when you got a beam sword, so it makes sense in context. Also, the enemies don't die, this kind of respawn in Ganon's evil jar in the underworld, like, is this Percy Jackson or something? The show is actually pretty well animated for the most part. I've heard people say it's bad, but like, okay, it's not movie quality, but it's pretty on par with most of the shows at the time, especially compared to the Super Show. It has a sort of anime influence with good movement and flow, and nothing really looks badly drawn except for this CDI looking scene, I guess. Speaking of which, the King of Hyrule is King Harkinian, and that name might sound familiar because it's the same name and seeming base of the King from Zelda CDI. That's amazing. Actually, a lot of the CDI scenes inspired by the cartoon. Link being a dumbass who wants Zelda to kiss him, Zelda being sassy and refusing, Ganon being a weird pigment sorcerer who's an idiot. I guess it was the closest thing to the time to define the character since the game kinda gave nothing back then. So yeah, that might change your perception on the CDI. A lot of things did ironically carry to the series. Link having a female fairy companion, some water enemies will become some bosses, Link's sword twirling will eventually become iconic, evil doppelgangers from Reflections, Zelda becoming more of an independent tomboy, freaking Breath of the Wild style shield surfing, but there are some episodes I really enjoyed. Seeing for the unicorn and Ganon use a flying unicorn he stole to abduct the king as a tool to rescue them before he kills him, that's some cool action. Also eventually meeting up with Beta Sheik, I guess, named Sing, who actually owned the unicorn and worked together to foil Ganon. Underworld Connection is a homage to the first game where the Triforce of Wisdom is shattered into pieces and had to retrieve it before Ganon does. Also with some really cool fights and set pieces to go with it. Doppelganger has Ganon use an enchanted mirror to make an evil clone of Zelda to abduct her and deliver the Triforce to her under disguise. Also, I gotta give it credit that it doesn't do the same stick, as Link actually knows she's a duplicate but goes along with it because it's the best way to find Zelda. Also hilariously, the "oh no, which one is which" moment is solved by him asking for one to kiss him, and the real one obviously is the one who refuses. That's pretty funny. The one episode Ganon tries to marry Zelda? Huh? That has never been a thing, but at least it's another mirror to get the kingdom case. Also, there's an inventor named Doof whose machines end up backfiring. Makes you wonder. The Moblins are revolting, had Ganon's minions usurp him trying to conquer Hyrule on their own, but end up showing they're so incompetent even without him, which is a nice idea. And missing Link flat up predicted Spirit Tracks in reverse, where Link is separated from his body as a ghost only Zelda can see, but it's implied that the reason why is that she loves him. So it's a nice version that Zelda takes the charge for most of the action and works with Link's arsenal that she's not used to. Also with an infamous meme moment.
Nice hat.
Ha! I'm back!
What if I...
Oh boy, smooching time!
I mean, I think overall the writing is fine, could be a bit better, but I didn't find too much to complain about outside of some dialogue. They even gave us a few funny moments.
Don't pick on Link. He's sick.
I'll say.
What is this? Ugly People Day?
Ouch! Ow! Ow! Ow!
Honestly, I really enjoyed this show and it's my personal favorite in the video. I think it's honestly solid, it's fun, it's adventurous, and I think it's a decent depiction of the source material for the time. I feel if Link wasn't such a smarmy asshole and Ganon more intimidating, people would look kinder to it. I actually recommend it. Like, please look past the "excuse me princess" and the cheese and just have fun with it and you'll like it. Even James Rolfe agrees.
It's an entertaining show. Even today, it's still fun to watch.
It's a fun look back on this show before so much of what was set in stone now, and how kinda close and not close it got. I actually wish it got more than 13 episodes because I enjoyed watching it that much. But we gotta move on to our last and probably most infamous show, Captain N. Hate to leave this show, but it's what we gotta do.
As for you, back in the evil jar!
Wait, no! Captain N is regarded as one of the most overt and obvious commercials in television and probably the most sell-outest Nintendo has been. And yeah, it's really hard not to agree. So the premise is that there's this parallel dimension video land where all the Nintendo game worlds are alive. Is this like Chalk Zone or something where like licensed games just kind of spawn to reality once they get published? So I guess Video Land is the main hub or something, and the plot involves the need to get an ultimate game master to stop the evil Mother Brain, yes from Metroid, and her army from conquering it. And it just so happens to be a young gamer named Kevin and his dog gets sucked in by the ultimate warp zone, and I guess he's gotta save these guys again and again. Now the thing that really makes this show infamous is how wrong they got the characters. Like, God, this is Mega Man. Yes, Mega Man, one of the most iconic characters. How do you get this way? Doesn't help that he sounds like a chain smoker and has a gimmick of adding Mega to the start of every word.
Stop, or I'll Mega Blast you!
Pit is called Kid Icarus, and while he does look at least somewhat like his game design, at least in the ballpark, he has to end every other word with Icus, which is annoying.
My arrows will stop that Apicus Maximus.
And oh god, Simon Belmont, not only does he look nothing like himself, looking more like a mountaineer than a vampire hunting warrior, but is an ultra-narcissistic, flamboyant himbo. And it's honestly pretty embarrassing. Like, holy hell, none of these characters look like they should. I have no idea how Kevin was able to identify them. I couldn't. But then Mother Brain? God, okay, the brain looks accurate, but then they gave them a face that looks like that one villain from Doctor Who and the voice of Audrey True from Little Shop.
It won't be long before I, beautiful goddess that I am,
become queen of video land. Don't you threaten me, son. You got a lot of gold. Nature calls. You got the point. I'm gonna bust your balls.
King Hippo is one of her henchmen, and he looks fine for the most part, but 1, why is he blue? And 2, why is he a villain? He wasn't evil. Eggplant Wizard from Kid Icarus is another, and okay, he actually looks fairly accurate, but still, why? Donkey Kong will be fine, but they made him a kaiju. You know he's not King Kong, right? There was a whole lawsuit about it. And then Dr. Light, oh god, why? He looks like a Keebler elf. Dr. Wily's another henchman, and okay, I guess he looks somewhat accurate just with a melon head. But god, the Robot Masters is so wrong. Yeah, this is what makes the series so infamous and how famously wrong they got the characters that make it look insanely inaccurate. It's almost like it's trying to avoid copyright. Like, you know how Matt designs the characters as off so they don't infringe on copyright? It's like that. Actually, no, wait. It's like action replay box art of video game characters. Like, you can kind of make out who's who, but it's just so completely wrong. Also, Princess Lana might be original, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were actually supposed to be Lady Palutena. Wait, that's what really happened? I swear I made that as a joke. It's real. God, I can't imagine what Samus would be like. Would they be a boy or something? Actually, she's in the comics and is fairly accurate. Though apparently the creators didn't even know she existed, like, you know Mother Brain but not Samus? Now, I've heard various things from the studios not giving them any help and they improvised with limited resources, or the designers wanted to do their own thing, or that it was intentional to avoid copyright. But yeah, no one really looks how they should. God, can you imagine if they got to do Pokemon thing if I thought they would do Pikachu? Honestly, I might need to make an entirely solo Captain N video because I had a lot more I wanted to talk about, so I won't get all my thoughts out. So effectively, Kevin was chosen by the Power Glove, of course, to become the Game Master to save them from Mother Brain and her minions. Kevin's a certified gamer and is an expert at most NES games, also gifting him a licensed Nintendo Zapper, which is a powerful laser gun, and his Power Pack, which he can literally hack the game world, letting him pause to freeze time for a short period and quickly warp jump in different directions. Pretty overpowered, but it's balanced by it running out of charge and malfunctioning when wet. And with warp zones all over, it allows the team to go travel through multiple different video game worlds, though usually just Mega Land, Castlevania, Metroid, and Mount Icarus. There's also Congo Land, a jungle where random kaiju Donkey Kong lives, but that has nothing to do with Donkey Kong at all. Wait, did this predict DK Island in Donkey Kong Country? It also explores some more obscure games like Bayou Billy, Dragon's Den, and even California games. I'm sure JonTron is happy about that.
I wanted to have fun, damn it. For real this time. And all that happened was I got sad.
Though it's not all actual games, as there's some original stuff like Princess Lana being an original character for the show as the Princess of Video Land. Does this imply that there's other lands for other companies like Sega or Sony? God, this is Chalk Zone all over again. But for the characters, Kevin, I honestly think I'd find more to talk about. I really expect him to be a stereotypical radical 90s kid, but he's really not. He's just kind of a standard protagonist, well-meaning but dorky and headstrong sometimes. He's kind of like basically a dorkier Marty McFly, even down to the design. It does make me wish the show did more to him. After stopping Mother Brain for the first time, he is given a way out, but he never does because he doesn't want to do his chores, and a ton of people acknowledge, like, what about his parents? They literally will just think their son vanished without an explanation. And yeah, the show never really explained it. The best I can justify is that the game world just goes by in hyperspeed, since they treat years, even millennia, have passed in Video Land when the NES was only up for 5 years at most when this aired. But there is kind of a reason later on. I do wish that they gave Kevin more core personality traits, but that's nothing compared to Princess Lana. I really want to like her. I don't even mind her design that much, even if it's pretty loud in 80s. She's the princess of Video Land after her father, King Charles, was imprisoned in the mirror dimension by Mother Brain, forcing her to take over. Now, she is very responsible and loyal, not to mention kind and clever, but she doesn't really ever get a chance to shine. They don't do much with her aside from, oh no, Video Land is in trouble, and she gets a few engaging plotlines with her father and later on a random brother, but it's not done too much. She rarely ever gets a shining role or focus in the episode, nor contributes much as kind of standing around and being there. At least she doesn't usually get kidnapped, so she's better than Super Show Pete, but even then she had her goofier moments.
I could hawk my jewels.
You already hucked them.
I could mortgage this cottage.
You already did.
She also doesn't contribute much in combat, which, like, come on, they even show she's been trained and decent with a gun. She should be in the action. I mean, come on, Zelda already proved we can have a competent princess in combat. And this is an original character. You can do literally whatever you want, like make her have magic. That would be awesome. It could be so useful. Like, she has a staff in her arc, and a mage would be perfect for the team. Kevin has his zapper and his hacks. Simon's decent at close range. Kid has his range attacks and enchanted arrows. And Meg has random super strength and his mega buster. A mage would be perfect perfect. One episode she did get powers and it was awesome, but she was possessed during it. Come on, why couldn't she do this stuff all the time? She doesn't even get much else than she likes fashion, I guess. How obvious. Now, unlike the others, she does seem to be more of a diplomatic princess. Hell, she even tried to make a peace treaty with Mother Brain to end the conflict. Again, I really wish she had more because she kind of just felt like a token girl. Kid Icarus and Mega Man, I thought I'd hate more, but honestly, they're okay and I didn't find their gimmicks too distracting, and they are mostly confident and not annoying. But it's weird how Mega Man has super strength but no other powers. Maybe he's just stuck on Guts Man. Speaking of, like, again, those robot masks and just Mega's design, it makes the Ruby Spears Mega Man look glorious. You know what, I was gonna include that show here, but no, that needs its own video, stay tuned. Simon, though, is the worst character. From stoic vampire fighting warrior to narcissistic asshole. He's actually the most annoying, actively derailing plots of being the comic relief of the team, and I really wish the show toned it down because it's gonna be a lot. Though then, in a move that was kind of a slap in the face to anyone who got invested, in Season 2 they introduced a new character. Turns out they out of nowhere get the ability to get one character out of the Mirrorverse, and King Charles doesn't do it to solve the conflict that up, and instead sends out Game Boy as the much better option. Yes, a giant sentient Game Boy is a new character in the main cast. You know, Zevo 3 went through complete hell dealing with the FCC for advertising in a children's show when they even make merchandise of the characters. They were literally just shoe mascots. And then I see this shit is able to air with no problems. Also, he's really annoying and useless, so yes, Simon, you're no longer the worst character. He does look good in shades though, I will give him that. But honestly, aside from the redesigns, I don't think the animation's terrible. It's kind of like a downgrade from The Legend of Zelda, but at least in the first 2 seasons, I couldn't call it terrible, or at least as bad as Super Mario World got. Well, okay, minus Season 3, I'll get to that eventually. I mean, it does have its moments of bad expressions, miscolorations, and off-modelness, but I mean, what show from this era didn't? Honestly, the quality varies from episodes being stilted and bad to somewhat decent and fluid. Admittedly, it does have a few infamous errors like forgetting the backgrounds a few times, but they did fix that in some releases. But really, the unfinished version got sent to DVD. Honestly, I do kind of dig some of the original designs the show has. They're weirdly kind of unique and gnarly, almost feel like they came from Dragon's Lair. I think they deserve some credit. And honestly, I think the plots are okay. Maybe just that watching so many of these shows at the same time has truly degraded my sanity, which it completely has. But I don't know, they work for the most part. I don't think the writing and plots are as good as Legend of Zelda either, but I was never bored of it and I find most of the stories passable. I wish with this cast we could have some more character exploration, but yeah, that wasn't happening at this time. But I did enjoy some episodes and I found them interesting. I do appreciate the variety of locations and games to explore. It's one of the coolest parts of the show that nearly every episode explores a brand new video game location and some cool environments and sequences about it. Trouble in Megaland is a standout and it's pretty much all a serious story trying to stop the villains from conquering 2 lands and relishes in it, even if it has disgusting ass Cutman in it. It even brought back The Legend of Zelda for a few crossover episodes. Awesome! Too bad they couldn't use Mario. But weirdly, even if I can't say the show is good, I definitely will say it's better than people give it credit for. It's not just a big commercial, there's some effort put in. I actually ended up kind of liking it. I don't know why, but it became my next hyperfixation. Like, I will admit, it's a complete guilty pleasure of mine. Something about it I just end up enjoying. I mean, at least to make this piece of art for it. Like, something about this team of losers grew on me. It just had a charm to them I ended up liking. But hopefully I'll be able to give my full thoughts on a dedicated video on it in the future, so hopefully people will be invested in just how wacky this show got, especially since it's the longest running of these. And so we're finally done after this. There was no more Nintendo-based shows with the exception of Donkey Kong Country, I think. And Pokemon, but I don't count it. And geez, what a ride. Honestly, I feel changed after seeing these. For better, for worse. It is really just a fascinating look back. Nintendo is so infamous nowadays for being overly protective of their IPs where apparently non-profit fan projects they treat as a serious threat. But seeing them throw their most iconic IPs to seemingly anyone just to promote their games regardless of quality, cohesiveness, or even just looking the same as their characters is honestly amazing. Like, you will never have something like the Super Show, Legend of Zelda cartoon, or especially Captain N today. It made me really nostalgic for a time I never really experienced myself. These aren't objectively good shows, at least compared to the standards of modern animated storytelling, but I still think they have their endearing and fun parts of them as well. I mean, not only the many memes that came from all of these and have been ingrained in the modern internet culture, but honestly I just have fun with them, and this is a time capsule for the time. Again, you will never see Mario getting a wacky TV show again, or a Zelda an action cartoon with a jerk-ass protagonist, or a show that's a massive crossover with a kid who got Isekai'd and collab with multiple different gaming icons who look nothing like they should. The fact that these exist is honestly extraordinary, and I think are worth a watch just for that. Like seriously, I think all of these at least deserve somewhat of a watch, at least just to pique your curiosity, and get a glimpse of how insane the late 80s were in gaming to the juggernaut it is now. All of the shows I mentioned are free on YouTube, there's no excuse, go watch some. Because I do think there's something worth watching in all of these, some more than others, but I really don't think they deserve to be forgotten and stand out so much against what we know as Nintendo. And well, time to end this video with the only thing I find fitting. Do the Mario, swing your arms from side to side, come on, it's time to go.
The Grey and Gandalf the White and Monty Python and the Holy Grail's Black Knight and Benito Mussolini and the Blue Meanie and Cowboy Curtis and John B. the Genie, Robocop, the Terminator, Captain Kirk and Darth Vader, Lopan, Superman, every single Power Ranger, Bill S. Preston and Theodore Logan.